Good afternoon everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Marius. Today's video, I just really want to hook up the brakes. Every time I have to take this camper outside alone, with a bit of a downhill that I've got going on here, it becomes a bit of a mission trying to brake the trailer and then slamming something in front of the wheel to make it stop moving. Seeing as I have all the components for the braking system here, I might as well do it now. I'm going to have to do it at some stage anyway. And then at least I'll have the handbrake. Obviously I'm not going to do the final adjustments now, as I need to tow the camper around, bed the brakes in a little bit and then do the final adjustments at that stage, which I'll make a video in explaining how to set up brakes properly. But for now, at least if I get a handbrake going, that'll make my life a lot easier.
Sorry people, I had to cut this audio away as I was tapping on a metal bar and the pitch noise would have freaked people out trying to listen to this. Here I lost a nut with a rounded edge that would enable the rod sticking through the center hole to pivot evenly and freely from side to side. Time to make a new one.
So I'm just really going to take a normal square nut and round the edges off on the lathe, just so it can rotate nicely in there. Alright, now I'm just going to put the two nuts on there. As you can see, that's now got a nice rounded edge in front. Put that nut on. So you've got a half rounded plate and nut, and those two together gives you a nice smooth action. Perfect. Just a quick tip, if you want to round the nut off and you don't have a lathe, another option that you can do is to use a cordless drill or a drill machine. You just lock the two and then you use a flapper disc, and then that there gives you that same round effect. If you don't have a lathe, then that's another way you can do it, from a grinder and a drill machine. So I need to quickly make a bracket that's going to hold the cables. So I'm going to use this nice thick piece of angle. It's going to go against the trailer and hold the cable in place over there, and then this rod will pull from that end. Okay, that should do it for a bracket. This is 5mm thick steel. Right, and there we have the holes drilled. Center one bigger than the two outside ones. So I'm just quickly going to hook up the brake cable, temporary, just so I can see the length of the whole system. I'll grease this up later with all the necessary stuff. There. Alright, if I look at where the cable runs, with a nice bend to it, it needs to sit over here, which is in the middle of these two spars. So I'm just going to have to build a little bracket that goes from here to this side, just to hold it, and then I can mount it onto it. And when it's there, I need a piece over here. I found this off-cut square tubing, 2mm wall thickness, which will be good for that little bridge. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm not looking at the level, at the bubble. I just want to make sure that the flat is level with the bottom of the trailer. Currently you can see it's tilted up, this side is higher than this side, so I just need to twist it out before I spot weld the other side. We're going to get something to twist on here. So as you can see here, I just need to bend it a little bit that side, then I can get it spot on. It's just hard to judge if you're only looking at the small piece. Once I put a big flat straight edge on, but I can clearly see where is it straight. There's it, perfect. Once I put this on, this is straight and not at an angle either way. Yeah, I just want to make this plate square. Alright, so what I've got now, I need a way to adjust this rod longer and shorter, and it's weekend and all the shops are closed, the proper shops at least, so I'm not going to be able to find a turnbuckle, and then even if I do get a turnbuckle, then I'm left with left hand threads on the one side, and my whole threaded rod is all right hand thread. I'm going to have to build myself an adjuster just to take up the slack in the rod from the front to the rear, and the way I'm going to do it is by stacking a bunch of nuts. So the trick is not to have them compressed, because then the rod won't screw through easily. So you just make sure that each touch each other gently, and then you weld it up. As you can see, they move all together. What you'll find sometimes, as you weld this, some of the galvanizing burns off on the inside and it like seizes up the threads. You can see the color discoloration on the rod. You'd think it's seized on there, but just get a lock nut on the back, force it out, and then run a tap through this just to clean out the threads. And once you're done with that, you'll see it goes on very easy again. So I'm quickly going to clean this up with a grinder. So how this would adjust, let's say that's one side of the rod. So I'll have a lock nut, and this will screw in there to wherever I want it. It'll lock up there against those two, and then the rest of the rod can then screw in there depending on how much I need, and just with another lock nut on this side. So that way it gives me a good 30 mils or 35 mils of adjusting, where this can go slide in and out of there and just lock it into place. And this way, with using all right hand threads, the rod can be right hand thread, the whole system is right hand thread. So that's my adjuster. And again, I stepped on my blade. The amount of times this has happened. Oh. Alright, so the front rod, I've got the adjuster and the lock nut on. So I'm going to screw that into the front of the coupler. And I'll just lock that up later. By adding 2 lock nuts to the back of the shaft, I can rotate the shaft under pressure, under force. So after setting the 2 wheel brakes, you don't really want to adjust the cables because this plate will be level and they'll be braking equally. So then further adjustments will be made on this rod. So by screwing it in and out of this adjuster that I just made, that'll lengthen or shorten it, and then when I'm done, you just lock it up there. So inside here I've got like a good 30 millimeters of adjustment, which won't really be needed because from this stage forward it will be minor adjustments. In a nutshell, how the running brake system works, for those that might not know. The components, you've got your coupler attached to a solid shaft that runs into the neck. So how this works, the second you start braking with your tow vehicle and your camper or your trailer wants to run into the back of that, that force will compress your coupler. Which in turn moves the shaft that this is attached to backwards. Now at the back of this, you've got like a little arm. Let's say that's the arm. So that sits there. As this compresses, the shaft pushes back and it makes the bottom point move forward. And this action is what creates your pulling force on your braking rod, actuating your brakes. There's also a huge damper in here to remove the jerkiness. I mean, I can't compress this by hand. You need a lot of force to start actuating the brakes. So if you're on a straight road and you let off the accelerator and you're coasting, there's no reason for the trailer to want to accelerate and run into the back of your truck. So the brakes won't actuate. Only when there's enough force to overcome this damping system will the brakes start coming on. Let's say you brake for a robot. So it's a gradual braking, you're not slamming on the brakes. You'll have the trailer wanting to run into the back of the tow vehicle, but not with massive force because you're not slamming on the brakes. So let's say this wants to push and that force compresses the neck with 20%. That'll in turn pull a little bit on the rod, actuating the brakes to 20% braking power, for instance. If that's enough to equalize the force, it'll stop yanking more on the neck because now the wheels are slowing down the camper and it's no longer running into the back of the tow vehicle. If that's not enough, you'll still have a little bit more force pushing the neck, compressing it even more, which then in turn pulls the rod a little bit more and you'll get 30% braking power until it's like balanced, so where the trailer slows down by itself. If the neck is no longer getting compressed, it won't add more brakes. The minute you start to go with the tow vehicle again, the neck decompresses, releases all the brakes, and you basically reset. Just the same as that, if you were to slam on your brakes in your tow vehicle, now you've got a massive amount of force wanting to run into the back of the tow vehicle, which would then almost instantly compress the neck maximum, applying maximum brakes, most probably locking up the wheels there, because you've got a huge amount of force that's pushing on the back of your car.
here you can see that arm I was talking about that swivels. So right now it's at that angle. The minute that bar comes and it presses at the back, it will move this piece forward and then yanks on the braking rod, and that's how you apply the brakes. The handbrake does exactly the same thing. You can see the handbrake pin over here. So the minute I start lifting up the handbrake, it comes down and the same thing happens. It moves this arm forward, which in turn creates a pulling force on the rod. So there's the first click. The last thing you've got in the system is your breakaway cable. So that sits basically there. Let me just lower this handbrake down the click. This would normally get attached to your tow vehicle. In the event that the coupler becomes detached, so what happens then, the minute there's a yank on this, that basically will activate the handbrake. Obviously there'll be a lot of more force here than what I can pull. That was just the first click. Normally by that time you've got a hell of a big mess on your hands in anyway, but that's just a breakaway cable to pull up the handbrake in the event of a detached coupler.
Alright everybody, thanks so much for watching. I know this video didn't have a lot of content in it. There's still going to be a few items that I need to button up, which won't be that interesting to video, but they need to be done either way, so I'm going to just document it. On the next video I'm quickly going to change out the leaf springs and also explain why I went with a solid axle and the whole suspension setup, and why I hate rubberized suspensions and my view on independent suspension. Just so you guys know why I chose the solid axle route with this camper and my thinking behind it. Please leave a like and a comment, share the video, and thank you so much for all the subscribers, really appreciate it. But that's it for now, and then I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much, and cheers.